First Watch with Sheriff Mark Daniels on KWCD Bisbee Sierra Vista. Hosted by Public Information Officers Carol Kappas and Grady Butler. First Watch is brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative.
And welcome to your Friday. I'm Grady Butler. With me is Sheriff Mark Daniels and Commander Bob Watkins. Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
So, Commander Watkins, you've been really spearheading the initiative of our care team. Catch us up on where that is now.
Thank you, Grady. I've been one small cog in a very large wheel trying to drive forth awareness to mental health issues in our community, both internally and externally. And by that I mean internally within the first responder community, and externally, those are the community members in need. Back in 2022, we were blessed with a grant from the Legacy Foundation of Southeastern Arizona with the intent of creating and implementing a crisis response team. The grant was for just under $1.3 million, and that team has been fully staffed for just under a year now, and it has proven to be highly effective. And one small story I'd like to share is we have a community member out in a rural area of the community that gets lonely, and he suffers from some addiction issues. And when he's lonely, he calls 911. And as the predicted outcome would be, there's a frictional event because he ends up attacking the police officers, and primarily just because he's lonely. And one of the unique things about what this care team did is they actually went through our triage calls, the calls coming in to dispatch, and they saw that there's no real reason that this person is calling 911. They're just calling 911 for a human interaction. So what they started doing is they started going out and proactively engaging with this member at his level in his home. And since the care team has been doing that, he hasn't called 911 in over a month. And we're happy to provide that community member with resources, and it's just such an amazing program. And I know you have upcoming radio shows, and we're going to put out a podcast with the care team highlighting exactly what they do and the community, the service that they provide our community. But we're just really grateful for the Legacy Foundation for giving us this opportunity.
Let's talk about the Legacy Foundation for a moment. Kind of take us back to how this began with them, because they are amazing to this community.
They absolutely are. They are critical for promoting wellness within our communities, not just Cochise County, but I believe Greenlee and Graham counties as well. They do so much. But in 2022, the Legacy Foundation allocated just over $2.2 million to educate and combat mental illness issues within our community. And we joined forces with La Frontera, Chiricahua Community Health Centers, Cochise College, and we created an initiative to drive mental illness and mental wellness to the forefront of our community and really do our best to address those concerns under the leadership and funding of the Legacy Foundation.
All right, and we thank the Legacy Foundation for what they do in our community. And Sheriff Daniels, you've had a very busy week. Let's jump back to last week. You had a bipartisan breakfast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was an invite. The mayor of Sierra Vista, Clea McCall, Brian McIntyre, our county attorney, and myself, along with Ann English, the Board of Supervisor Chair, went to this breakfast. It was outside the county, and it was a bipartisan group called ACE, they call it, where this was like their 50th event, where they're traveling the country. They're actually meeting with local leaders to understand problems and challenges. Obviously, they came here part with the border. And we discussed the challenges we're facing, and I'll just tell you what I told them. 51% of Congress has failed our country when it comes to our border security. And I said, if that offends you, that's on you. I'm saying it because Congress has not moved this needle. And that goes for both parties. I mean, when the ideology for re-election is more important than people, you're going to fail. And I think that's why they're failing. And so it was a interesting breakfast, interesting discussion, but I think it was good that we're doing it. I mean, listen, they're not going to agree with me. I'm not going to agree with them all the time. But the bottom line, we're at the table. We're engaged. Most important, and let's see if we can traction. I sent them a thing back to all of them, thanking them, but I also sent them a thing looking forward to see what the efforts and this conversation brings.
And you also visited New Mexico.
Yeah, I was in New Mexico this week, went to Santa Teresa, New Mexico. It was right on the suburbs of El Paso, Texas, between Border Patrol, the sheriffs of New Mexico, where I got the invite from, and their state legislative folks, we came down, had a round table, had some tours on the border to see it. You know, it's a part of Santa Teresa where they say that it's so dangerous that their agents have to show extra caution just going into one area because of them coming across the border and doing things. And it's just really sad that the cartels have that much control. But what have we done in Arizona, and specifically what have we done in Cochise County? And they're looking to duplicate that in New Mexico from their state partnership with their sheriffs. So it's a compliment to what we're doing here, but also shows that our innovation wants to be shared in another state. And we're already working with some other states on doing things. So it's just another positive way that we unify, absent the federal government. I hate to say it. I'm not talking about the agents and those who wear a badge. I'm talking about those elected officials that have failed to address our country and those communities and our communities. So bottom line is this. It's a positive thing. It was a positive meeting. I left there going, wow, hopefully we can get something done with the state of New Mexico in a partnership role. And by the way, I drove New Mexico 9. First time in my career. New Mexico 9 is the road from Animas, New Mexico, outside of Cochise County, all the way to pretty much El Paso. Never been on that road before. It's not a bad road. It was a good ride.
Well, let's talk about celebrating animals. That was last Saturday, and it's a good chance to give our ACOs a shout-out.
Animal control officers from all the different organizations, state, local, and federal, Al Thomas and our USDA, our ACOs that work with the Sheriff's Office, and all our partners out there to protect our furry friends. And great event last Saturday, well attended as always. Sadly, I had to miss it, and people, if you're asking where was the sheriff at, Tim Sumner, who's the Greeley County Sheriff, his son, 21-year-old son, Trevor, was killed from a horse accident. He fell off a horse and was drugged. Horrible. And so his services were up in Greeley County at the fairgrounds, and I chose to go support my neighboring sheriff and his family going through that emotional time. So I missed the animal control event, but my team told me it was well attended. Great. Thank you to the people for supporting our animals.
And another shout out we can give is next week is National Detention Officer Week.
Right, and we just did a video this week that's going to be coming out in regards to, or if it's not already out, in regards to the support and appreciation we have for the men and women that work in our detention facilities, our 3 facilities. And it goes for the kitchen staff, the medical staff, the support staff, everybody that makes that happen every day. Thanks for what they do. They're unsung heroes that are doing a job that some can't and many won't do. So thank you for doing what you do. Proud to have you on my team.
And also this week you attended an animal shelter meeting in Douglas.
Actually, we had the meeting in Bisbee in regards to what are we doing in Cochise County. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Cochise County, and again, sometimes it's not well received, but we need our own shelter. We truly need our own shelter. We need to spend some dollars. Let's do it right, because every time you partner, and I'm all about partnership, but you also risk the inability, especially if you have no control on how the shelter is run, if it goes wrong, and that's where Douglas comes into factor. When something goes wrong, guess what? Our reputations are shared with that. I want to control my own destiny, and I think that's important of any elected official, any community leader. If you don't control it, how do you control your reputation? It's hard to do, and then you defend later. And I've been down that road before on some of our shelters. So my recommendation is we have great ACOs. Our reputation, I'm proud of it. They've earned it through the community. Now let's get a shelter, and we'll run it. Let's spend some dollars there. Let's run the shelter, and let's be a resource for our furry friends, number one. But number two is our community that depends on us.
You wanted to say a few words this morning about the Monroe County District Attorney.
Well, Commander Watkins and I were talking about that. And if you haven't seen this, if you go to YouTube and pull up Monroe County Attorney, a district attorney they call him back there, out of New York, out of Rochester, New York, take a look at that video. This DA was stopped going 20 miles over the speed limit in a residential neighborhood in the city. Speed limit was posted 35. She's going 55. She failed to stop. She called the chief to tell the chief, hey, your cop's trying to stop me. Tell him who I am. Pulls in the driveway, and then from that point on, used some profanity, called him a couple names, was not compliant. It made me sick to watch this video. The fact is, nobody's above the rule of law. Nobody's above the law. I'm not. You're not. Commander Watkins is not. But when you see this display, you wonder why we have a problem with the criminal justice system. And I'm just going to say this publicly. I was so upset when I read or watched this video. I was going to write her a letter out of my office, official letter, saying how embarrassed I was that I share the criminal justice system with her. But I think that's already happened back there. But I encourage everybody to watch that, and I'll say this to you too. Nobody's above the rule of law. And I know, Bob, you talked about that watching this. It's disturbing, isn't it?
Very much so.
And just to think anybody that's elected to serve the people, a statement she made, I think this is an important statement, just write me the F ticket because you know who prosecutes it, and I'll take care of it. Wow. Who says that? I mean, and who believes in that? If you're in a role model position and you believe in that, shame on you. So I encourage people, but I also want to make a statement with that to watch it, but I also want to make a follow-up statement. Once you watch it, I can assure you we enforce the rule of law, absent positions, absent who you are. If you're held accountable, you're held accountable. We always have a humanistic approach to how we enforce our rule, but it's based on the rule of law.
And you've got some new border stats that have just come out that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But first, you swore in the Anti-Human Traffic Unit. Tell us about that.
That's a grant that we have that deals with to protect, identify, and go after the cartels that are trafficking humans. Bottom line, we got some 3 of the best experts in the country working with us and other law enforcement around the country, and it brings that scope of expertise into Cochise County, working on a new border center to address that. Bottom line, we're trying to save lives. Let's just face it. I mean, modern-day slavery, it's amazing not everybody's standing united in a huddle, high-fiving that we're working together on this. In fact, we can't even agree to secure our border, let alone to protect. And that's a secure border protects people. That's the bottom line. This is just another element here in Cochise County, costing our taxpayers nothing because this is a 100% inclusive grant that's helping us do that. So I'm pretty proud. I got to swear him in today to be part of our team.
And for the listeners, can you clarify the difference between human smuggling and human trafficking?
It's a real gray area, and I know the experts say no, it's not, Sheriff, but it is. Cartels are the criminal organization, these transnational organizations that drive this. Smuggling is consensual by the people being smuggled. Smuggling, trafficking is non-consensual. But you put somebody, a 7-year-old, in the back of a trunk of a car or in the back of a car under about 3 adults, and they pay a large, enormous fee that they can't afford, then they're serving to the cartels. Tell me that's consensual. All I'm saying to you is the cartels are profiting on the back of human beings, and we allow it to happen every day. Shame on us. If we can't do a better job, we're in trouble.
And that leads us into the new border stats that just came out.
So the border stats, Bob was going to read these, but he didn't bring his glasses, but I'll go ahead and read them. So since January 1 of 2024, so this includes just about 4 months worth of stats, not even a complete 4 months. 400, I'm looking at my glasses, 82 border-related crimes, 64 fair-to yields. These are people that were booked in the jail. These are not all the incidents. These are the ones that we got our hands on. 64 fair-to-yield people, which are felony flights. And then under the new statute of smuggling, 99 people were booked in our jail. So the cost on that is a little over $1.1 million for border-related crimes. Again, it just shows you. And another stat I want to show up on this one, out of those 482, 36 were foreign-born or legally in the country. So again, these are U.S. citizens coming to our county to participate in international crime. I think it's important. If you add over the last 2 years and these 4 months here, if you look at those stats, we hit 3,000 border-related bookings in our jail at a cost of $10 million plus. So when people say, well, what's the sheriff doing? What's law enforcement doing? What's the Border Patrol doing working with us and the troopers? We're doing our job here. I'm very impressed with what we do.
Well, let's talk about your stop of the week.
Stopped a car this week that I fell in behind it on 92 coming into town, and the vehicle struggled to stay in the lane. Now, when a car struggles to stay in the lane, is it mechanical or is it human impairment? Is it medical? We don't know. We're not mind readers. We don't have that crystal ball like people think we do. The car going in and out, I'm watching it, and first thing I think of as a cop is impairment. Is there an impairment? Then the car drifts between 2 lanes, and it's a 4-lane road on 92 coming into town, 2 coming in. And then it splits the lane, slow responses, and then finally pulls into the outside lane. No turn signal. You have to activate a turn signal within traffic when you're, or if it's going to affect traffic. I made the stop on the car. The driver was less than cooperative and was complaining about everything but her driving. And they made a comment to just write me a ticket. Now, when you ask a law enforcement officer when you have committed violations and you've been explained that, but you want to look at everything else, we're going to fulfill your wish. In this case, I fulfilled her wish. Call me a genie with a badge. But either way, and I'm not being cynical with that, but The law states you got to stay in your designated lane. It's not discretionary. Those lanes, painted lines on each side, are not discretionary. It says you got to be in that lane, you got to drive on the asphalt, and you got to drive safely. And you got to use turn signals when you impact traffic. So again, she got a traffic citation. I'm sure I'm on top of her list right now, but the bottom line is it's all about public safety.
And before you go, let's give your safety message of the week, and you want to talk about the heat.
The heat, yes. I mean, the heat is coming quickly. We were in New Mexico, like I said, this week, and it was hot out there. It was hot. The heat's coming up. I mean, we see a lot of exposure deaths out there. Just the migrants are coming across illegally, and then they die of exposure. But second to that, we need to be better. You got to hydrate. The sun takes that hydration out of you, and next thing you know, you're dehydrated. But also, Bob, what's coming out of the sand? We talked about that before the show.
Rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes, and they bite, they hurt, and I'm scared to death of them. I'll just tell you, there's a lot of things that don't bother me, but that's one of them. And so be careful out there. The heat draws a lot of things. Remember, Arizona, pokes, sticks, and bites. So be careful out there, everybody. Be safe, especially when you're out in the desert.
Well, Commander Watkins, thanks for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
And Sheriff, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you, everybody. Have a safe week. Talk to you next week.
First Watch on KWCD Country. It's brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative.
Giving you an inside look to your sheriff's office. Let's go back to First Watch on KWCD.
And it's brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative. I'm Grady Butler, and with me is Carol Kappas. And our next guests are from the CARE team. Let's start with Alana. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
You bet. So Commander Watkins was talking earlier about you guys, about what the CARE team does. So kind of give us an overview of what this team does for our community.
All right. So I cannot reiterate more that we were funded by the Legacy Foundation, and it is through their grant that allows us to run this program. We have partnered with other mental health agencies, other wellness agencies with a focus on health and wellness in the community. So the CARE team was initially a brainchild of a mental health support program that we knew we wanted to make an improvement in the community around the 911 intersection of mental health. And I got hired on. I was the first hire to develop that program and build that program out. I have past experience in public safety settings and mental health program settings. So we assessed the county. We looked at everything about our 911 stats, the facilities we have available, and took a look at, okay, what options are going to be best for the county? What options are we going to be able to do through the sheriff's office? So when we looked at the call volume and the call data, we were able to see that we have some standard, I'm not going to say standard, some common types of calls. We have what people understand as true mental health, folks that are diagnosed, they know they have mental health, and they do have crises that intersect with 911. And we also have folks that their mental health is usually more a product of some other social determinant of health. They're extremely lonely. They have medical issues. They have finance issues. They have housing issues. They have legal issues, and all of these things are coming together. They're very isolated in the rural county, and their desperation leads to 911 calls. So we were able to, again, with the generous funding of the Legacy Foundation, we were able to staff. So I have Ken and Susan who are here, and Christy who's also not here with us today. And we run calls where there is some kind of crisis, and we stabilize that crisis. And that's the broad definition of what we do. Now, what that looks like is going to be different for every single community member and every single call. So that may be there is someone having suicidal ideation right now, and we're going to get there before the crisis team does, so we go support the deputies, we assess the person. It could be a community member who's really hostile and really angry. They're talking about things that don't make sense. We work with them. We figure out what's the root cause. We really are a grab bag of services that support community members so they have less or no interactions with 911 anymore. That's our big goal, is if you're calling 911, no matter who you are, you're having a crisis. And we want to figure out the root cause and assist those folks and support those folks until they don't experience those types of crises anymore. That is our driving mission.
And one of the things that you mentioned is that you go on calls. So tell us, you actually respond to locations. Tell us how that works.
So we have spent a great deal of time, and we've had a wonderful partnership with the CCOM, the Southeastern Arizona Command Center, who does all of our dispatch. And we look at call types that would be appropriate for us. So if the call is safe, if the scene is safe, we're able to meet the deputies on scene and assist and support. So, excuse me. Again, it could be because yesterday I ran a call with a minor that was having some suicidal ideation, and the deputies, the kiddo had made some statements that were severe enough that they wanted that mental health support out there. So drive out there, mom's there, kids there, spend 15, 20 minutes with them, stabilize, make sure everyone's safe and good to wrap up that call, and then we'll continue to follow up with them until those services. Sometimes we get dispatched at the same time, so whatever's coming through 911, they'll say, yes, we're going to send care also, because we know exactly who this person is or what's going on here. Sometimes the deputies will call dispatch and say, hey, can you send us a care team for this? This has got some care elements to it. Other times the deputies will wrap up the calls beautifully, and our deputies do amazing work with our community members, and they know they're okay right now. We've got everything sorted out right now, but please follow up with these people. And so that's another way that we interface with the community.
Sounds very innovative and interesting, and I really appreciate that this is in our community because it is needed. That's very cool. Well, let's move over to Ken a little bit. Ken, let's talk about, she talked about some partnerships and collaborations. Let's kind of dig into that a little bit. Who do you guys work with?
Well, okay, Susan and I sat down yesterday kind of and went through the list, and we were kind of blown away ourselves by the length of the list and the diversity of different organizations and different agencies, people that we deal with. So we were surprised at the diversity, as I said, and in terms of looking at it, we thought it seems like we're not that busy to have done all of this. But yeah, it starts with the sheriff's office, obviously, and I really feel great about the fact that we're supported by the upper command in the sheriff's office, and the sheriff himself, and Commander Watkins. So it really helps us to know that we have that backing and we have their support in whatever we do. But when I started doing this, I think I had a kind of a misconception of how the program would work. We do respond to emergency calls, but a lot of what we seem to end up with is working with people who are in very deep holes in terms of their life situation. And so we have kind of gravitated towards staying with people sometimes for 6 months and working with them to help them get resources and kind of lift them up so they can get on their own. Our goal is to get them to be regulated and controlled in their life experience. So that entails us using every resource that we can in the county. When we started this, we came up with a list of resources that we thought was very inclusive, and the more we were working with people in different agencies and moving around the county, the more we realized that we didn't have them all. We didn't know them all because there's not a real a good solid list, I don't think, of all the various resources that are available for mental health support and the things that we do. So we have built that list up as we've gone, and most people that are in difficult situations, different circumstances, they aren't able to reach out to resources because they're confused, they're overwhelmed with life. And that's kind of where we're able to get in, stabilize the situation, as Alana said. And the de-escalation is a big part of what we do, because we go to people who are having maybe the worst day of their life, or the worst experience in their life, or the worst run. So we try to first of all secure and regulate a situation and people, and then de-escalate, and then connect them with resources. so that they can stand on their own 2 feet and get to a point where they can run their own lives. And that includes, we deal with a lot of what we call SMI, seriously mentally ill people. We deal with a lot of domestic violence and a lot of suicidal ideation. Those are probably the big 3, but there's numerous other ones. And I think when Susan speaks, she can speak to a lot of those, because we do have a very diverse. In some days, we have in one day we did 7 contacts, which is a lot. Our average is considerably less than that. But so, and each one of those was extremely diverse. So we have to get up in the morning and go, yeah, we could be anywhere in this county in a little over an hour, dealing with any kind of situation, that comes up. That's what makes this job extremely, really exciting for me and enjoyable. But the bottom line is, we're able to, with the support we have from the Sheriff's Office and Legacy Foundation, we're really able to, I think, engage with people in a positive way.
Well, let's talk about some of the successes, because that's a good way to let the community know how this is working. So give us some success stories.
So I want to share a broad success. One of the services we provide in our stabilization is whatever folks need. And some of the folks that we work with, numerous folks we work with, they're really isolated, they live by themselves, they have an animal. And that animal is what's preventing them from maybe going to the hospital or getting the treatment they need. And Ken and Susan have done incredible work getting someone to watch their dog, getting the dog to the vet's office. And it's incredible how those companion animals for people that's their whole world. It's everything to them. And the opportunity we have and the latitude we have to just fix that for them so they can go get the help. That we can put a dog in our car. There's other agencies where that's not allowed in the rules. And so we have this opportunity to help people. And I know of at least 3 that I can think of off the top of my head where we would not have been able to get anywhere with that person or assist that person if we didn't have the ability or the insight to work with their pets and make sure that that's taken care of. And that's just something I love about our program. And again, because of the Legacy Foundation and our support from the CCSO, that we can do that. We can bridge that gap for people and help them where they need it and how they need it. Those are some of my favorite stories. And the shenanigans they have gotten into trying to get dog sitting is quite something. It's wonderful.
And that seems like a very simple example of a success. And I'm sure they get very much more complicated than that. But what a nice little simple example. Do you have another example of a success story you'd like to share, Susan?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. One of the things that I think we deal with a lot is just meeting the basic need. A lot of times people, as Alana said, are very lonely. And so when we come out and we get to come to their home and we get to share their life in a very personal way, they immediately feel connected. They feel like, hey, the county cares. The county really cares, and they've sent you out. And we've had some people that were not as open to our services, but then at the end they're like, well, thank you for trying to care. Somebody actually said that. Thank you for trying to care. And so I was like, that's what we're trying to do. We're really trying to reach out, trying to meet basic needs. And when I'm talking about basic needs, I'm talking about just food. I'm talking about clothing, talking about maybe transportation to a medical appointment, things. It's interesting how if you can just remove those small barriers, sometimes how much better somebody will end up doing in the long term, because all of us have hit those glitches where we're just in a moment we're like, I just can't get to this appointment, or I just ran out of food because somebody else came in and took my food from my home. And so being able to provide emergency food boxes, we've collaborated with the Salvation Army for bringing people over to get their lunches that they serve. They also provided some clothing sometime when we had someone who had nothing. They had lost everything. They had one little bag with them. So they gave us some clothing. They gave us some food. And so we have these wonderful collaborations with different people in the county that are already doing this really great work. And a lot of it, like I said, is just providing basic needs. And once you get them stabilized with that, and then they know that somebody cares, it really makes a difference in their life in the long term.
And that's another example of how simple this can be, where it's just a conversation and some food and taking care of a pet. That's like really basic stuff that you guys get to go out there and handle for people, which makes a big difference in their lives. But I'm sure that sometimes it can get a lot more complex than that. Do you have any examples of something that maybe just kind of got out of hand?
So something that comes to mind as one of our not just success stories, but an example of the kind of work we do and the partnerships with other agencies is if we have someone in the community who maybe does have some behavioral health issues, they're not in a great place, but maybe they don't belong in the county. And they need to get to Tucson, they need to get to Phoenix, they need to get to Chandler, something like that. And we are able to get people where they need to go. So we can work with, and I have a case in mind where, someone's looking for treatment that's not available in our county, but that's what they need right now. And we make lots of phone calls and drive them around and get them to where they need to go. And some of those can be really complicated when we're trying to find placement for someone, when we're trying to make sure insurances are covered. And it also depends on the severity of someone. Maybe they meet criteria for this place, but not for this place, but this one has a bed and this one doesn't have a bed. And it's a lot of case management, and it's fast. We don't have business hours that we're getting a lot of this stuff done. So we have complicated cases like that. And then we do have cases where people's mental health has a very high acuity, and we have to get involved with the hospital, and we may be getting involved with the state's Title 36, which is involuntary commitment for evaluation. Those can be really complicated cases where we're trying to make sure that people are getting the services they need, and that the assessment of their severity is appropriate. We want to keep things as minimal as possible. We want people to stay in their homes. We want people to stay in their support systems. However, there are instances when our mental health symptomology is just going to be higher than that, and we're really focused on safety.
And you're working with CCOM and doing some trainings on that. So tell us a little bit about how that helps internally with all of our partners.
So I can't say enough good things about CCOM and the leadership in CCOM right now. I love working with CCOM. The two things that we've been able to do with CCOM is we've been able to implement something called dispatch diversion. And dispatch diversion is through the 988 crisis system. So when calls come into CCOM that meet criteria to go to a crisis counselor, they immediately get triaged to a crisis counselor. And so that's a huge benefit to the dispatch system and to the public safety system, because those callers go exactly where they need to be going. So that's a really cool thing we've been able to do with CCOM. And then we're able to go into CCOM because we do have this partnership and train them on behavioral health symptomology, train them on de-escalation. They recently hosted a mental health first aid class at CCOM, which is for the first time since it's existed, which is incredible. So we're really able to work with the nexus of where the calls come in, so we can triage more appropriately, and then we can assess our resources more appropriately, so we can most efficaciously, most expeditiously get people the service they need. So that's been wonderful.
Well, we thank you and your team for what you do in our community. This just sounds simply amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before you go, let's give a shout out to CCOM one more time.
Oh, we love.
You love CCOM.
We love CCOM. But yeah, CCOM is incredible. The Legacy Foundation is incredible, and our leadership has been amazing, allowing us to do the work we do. We're little Care Bear renegades, so we get to do what we want, and we want to help, so it works great.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys coming in and talking to us today.
Thank
Anything
you so
else you
much.
want to add before we go? All right. Well, we thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
It's First Watch, and it's brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative.
Giving you an inside look to your sheriff's office. Let's go back to First Watch on KWCD.
And it's brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative. I'm Grady Butler. With me is Carol Kappas and our next guest.
Welcome back, Cochise County, and thank you so much, Steve Boyce, for coming back in.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you guys for having me in here.
You're with Horsing Around Rescue, which is a really cool nonprofit right here in our community. Before we get to why you're here, tell us what Horsing Around Rescue does.
Horsing Around Rescue rescues horses. I mean, simple form of it. What we do is we get horses from all kinds of different situations. We rehab them as whatever we need to do for rehabbing them. We get them into our ground school training, which we got classes a couple days a week. And then we get them into the undersaddle, and then we adopt them into forever homes.
That's pretty cool, and we appreciate that you do that in our community.
It is crazy.
Now, Saturdays is when everybody goes to yard sales around town, and you've got something that's kind of even cooler than a yard sale happening tomorrow.
You're comparing it to a yard sale?
Well, that's what I would see it as.
It's our whole arena filled with everything tech. We've got ranch stuff, we've got saddles, there's a whole list of all the different things in there. And last night we got a lady called me and said, I've got stuff. We got 2 pickup loads of stuff last night at 8:30, and it blew my mind. I said, you sure you want to come to 8:30? Yeah, we can't do it tomorrow, so your tax sale Saturday, so we're coming. I said, okay.
And out of some of the 2 pickup loads, how many saddles?
10 saddles.
That's amazing.
10 saddles, all kinds of blankets, all kinds of halters, all kinds of bridles, everything you can think of, lead ropes, everything you can use for a horse. I think there was at least 2 or 3 of them there in that. It was incredible. People in this community have supported us, and this exactly shows what it is. And you guys support the heck out of our rescue. Because of you get the word out, people come. This tax sale goes from 8 in the morning till noon, and it's going to be outrageous. It really is.
And your prices are good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've got 2 brand new saddles that people donated. The husband died on this one, and the lady said, "Well, I can't use the saddle. Do you want it?" And I said, "Well, sure." So she brings the saddle over, and she gets it out of her car. I got it out of the car, and I looked at it. It was brand new. It's never been used. Well, he bought it, and he was going to use it 4 or 5 years ago, and then he died, and so I didn't want to get rid of it. But now I do. It going to you guys. All the proceeds go back to the horse rescue to help us feed horses, and it's a gift from the community. It's awesome.
And so you're going to be 8 to noon, and so people are going to maybe be just waking up, and tell them another reason why they need to come over
reason
there.
Of all to come.
Yes.
The lady that does sourdough I asked her one time, she came to our event, and I asked her, I said, don't you make cinnamon rolls or anything? She says, no. I said, why not? And she said, I haven't really thought about it. I'll make cinnamon rolls for you. So Wednesday, she called me and says, I think I figured out cinnamon rolls. I'm bringing cinnamon rolls. I said, okay, that's great. We're gonna
So you can have
rolls.
cinnamon rolls, and you can shop for saddle and tack.
Tack for saddle, spurs, shaps, everything you can think of is going to be there.
All right. Well, how do we get to Horsing Around Rescue and the tax sale?
Horsing Around Rescue is on Highway 92. The address is 7484 East Highway 92. It's 1 mile east of the Coronado Memorial. It's 1.25 miles west of Kings Ranch Road on Highway 92. It's on the right-hand side or south side, and it's very easy to find. Big sign says Single Star Ranch. The ranch supports our rescue absolutely, and we're going to have the whole arena filled with stuff, believe me.
All right. Well, we'll see you tomorrow then at the tax sale, and thanks for what you do for horses in our community.
You're very welcome. And it's not just me. I couldn't do it without volunteers. We are all run by volunteers. We have people that come from all walks of life that come out there just to play with horses, just to work with horses, and it helps us immensely, from everybody in the sheriff's department. In fact, the volunteer people in the sheriff's department are coming out to make sure that nobody steals our money. or saddles, and it's a community event. It's really awesome.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to us today,
Thank
Steve.
you both very much. Thank you for the jobs you guys do. I'm amazed.
We
Thank
appreciate the support. Thank you.
you. You bet.
All right, Carol, how do they get a hold of us at the Sheriff's Office?
So reach out. You can call us 520-432-9500 or check us out on your social media. Cochise County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Mark J. Daniels is our Facebook page. That'll link you into our Instagram and our X account. Or take a look at our webpage, cochise.az.gov/sheriff.
First Watch on KWCD Country, brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative.
You've been listening to First Watch, brought to you by Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative. Keep up to date. Follow the Cochise County Sheriff's Office on Facebook and tune in next Friday, 7 a.m.